age is an issue. I'm a grown man running against a 6-year-old. Trump's speech was so embarrassing, the statue of Robert E. Lee surrendered again.
He voted for you, and the reason that he voted for you is because you're a decent man.
Welcome back to Tracking That, a channel where we try to track what liberals are saying but end up not being able to as usual. The White House Correspondents' Dinner has been a tradition since 1924 to have the president and media roast one another and to really just let the hair loose. It's full of journalist personalities and Hollywood celebrities, including Scarlett Johansson's husband Colin Jost, who is part of making us sound bad. He delivered one of the worst speeches of all time with awkward pauses, sucking on Joe Biden's toes. But to his credit, there were maybe 2 semi-decent jokes toward Biden, which we'll get into a bit. And since Joe Biden is the president, he gave the most boring and cringeworthy Correspondents' Dinner speech in history by a president. It was so boring that the main highlight of the night was Kamala Harris's husband not knowing what to do, and Biden set a new record for one of the longest speeches he's given, 8 minutes, where he gave one-liners written by his Democrat staff that were of course not funny in the slightest, and honestly stole a joke from Reagan about age being an issue.
Of course, the 2024 election is in full swing, and yes, age is an issue. I'm a grown man running against a 6-year-old. Well, I feel great. I really feel great. I'm campaigning all over the country, Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina. I've always done well in the original 13 colonies. And speaking of history, did you hear what Donald just said about the major Civil War battle? Quote, Gettysburg, wow. Trump's speech was so embarrassing, the statue of Robert E. Lee surrendered again. But look, age is the only thing we have in common. My vice president actually endorses me. I had a great stretch since the State of the Union. Well, Donald has had a few tough days lately. You might call it stormy weather. Trump's so desperate he started reading those Bibles he's selling. Then he got to the first commandment. You shall have no other gods before me. That's when he put it down and said, this book's not for me.
Such a great joke about the first commandment coming from a so-called devout Catholic that is pro-abortion. His joke about Kamala endorsing him because Pence won't fell flat, but unfortunately for him, his own wife can't even endorse the vice president because Joe Biden knows that she's a DEI hire. I mean, who runs alongside someone that has called them racist during the debates? And Joe Biden has the nerve to laugh about his own DOJ indicting Trump multiple times about Stormy Daniels. It's the biggest scam ever. But here was the 2 jokes that Colin Jost gave that were just okay.
It's also wonderful to be back in Washington. I love being in Washington. The last time I was in D.C., I left my cocaine at the White House. Luckily, the president was able to put it to good use for his State of the Union. I'm kidding, of course. The president doesn't call it cocaine. He calls it high-speed rail. By the way, can you blame the guy for turning to cocaine? He must be exhausted, orchestrating 4 separate trials against his rival, rigging the Super Bowl, and gearing up to steal a second election. Wow. Like many of you here tonight, I pretend to do news on TV. My Weekend Update co-anchor, Michael Che, was going to join me here tonight, but in solidarity with President Biden, I decided to lose all my black support.
But anyways, these jokes were short-lived because the rest of the speech was him sucking up to Biden because at the end of the day, him and SNL continuously try to get Joe Biden elected. And now since they have nothing on him to convince voters to vote for him, he's using the adults in the room or decent man argument for Biden. But that's the last thing we need to vote people on. I'd rather have a big, meanie head who makes the right decisions than someone who tears our country to shreds and is a decent man. But arguably, Trump is one of the most decent men of all time.
He voted for you, and the reason that he voted for you is because you're a decent man.
Oh, I think I threw up in my mouth. The rest of his speech, I'm not kidding, were trash jokes, where you can tell it was forced laughter, and he would have these awkward pauses to get the laughter.
I have to say, it's not a great sign when the only thing keeping a print media company alive are games people play on their phones. Too chilling for you guys? This room just froze faster than Mitch McConnell.
To wrap this video up, I'm going to be leaving you with the new CNN poll that puts Trump up Biden, with Biden's abysmal approval rating dropping back down to 38%, which is the lowest approval rating in 70 years, even worse than Jimmy Carter. This sends a clear message: no matter how much Hollywood and the deep state try to prop up a puppet, reality will hit you back in the face. But we can't stay complacent with these numbers.